Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. I see we already have comments on YouTube from Kevin tuning in from Lakeland, Florida, and Mario from Mexico saying hello to you all as well. I hope everybody watching the stream had a great weekend. Welcome back. We have some fun stories to go through today. A lot of things happening in the market. Major changes going on in net option sentiment for QQQ and SPY. So it's going to be a great stream as everybody's entering the stream today, whether you're watching this live or the run back in the future. By the way, we've been getting some good viewership after the stream is live and posted as a video on the channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitter after it's live sometime later, let us know in the comments. We appreciate it. I see Yesh Sub GM Seattle area. Good morning to you as well. So the QQQ is up 0.75% today. SPY, Dow, and Russell are all in the green as well. The VIX is red, so the market is looking a bit bullish here. And as I said in the beginning, the QQQ and the SPY net option sentiment making major changes today. So the SPY is still ahead of the QQQ, which is the first we've seen in a while. We noticed this at the end of last week that the SPY had shown more strength in our net option sentiment. It's now at 45 today, so it's also above that 40 level that we like to delineate the bull bear line, and the QQQ is at 39. So the QQQ is still slightly below the SPY, but both well above where they've been at in most of recent times. The market seems to be on a more bullish footing at the current moment. And when George gets in here, we're going to roll into the jobs report that we got at the end of last week. A bit weak, unemployment rising slightly. So why are the SPY and QQQ reacting bullishly to this data that suggested a little bit more weakness in the economy? Perhaps the rate cuts are all but said and done at this point. I think it's just about a week or two away now for the next Fed meeting. Maybe even possibly we see a 50 basis point cut, but we will get into all of that. Then on our Wednesday stream, if you guys were watching, we were talking about how Robinhood and AppLovin were the prime candidates to be added to the S&P 500. And we've covered this a couple times when people were suspecting that they would be added and they hadn't been, but they both were added now. So, what does it change for AppLovin and Hood now to have that backing? And which one is does George like more at this point? Now that they've both been added, both are reacting very positively today. Let me just double check and make sure that that is still the case. I imagine it would be with the market going up today. So we'll check out App first, up 10%. Yep, holding those gains, and Hood is up almost 14%. So yes, both up. A huge move going on today in EchoStar stock. It was announced that they're selling their Spectrum licenses to SpaceX in a $17 billion deal. And this comes just after the company in August sold, I believe, for $23 billion more of their business to AT&T. And so the stock is up 14% today. But again, we're seeing with these moves in the space industry that it is, or satellite industry, that it is affecting ASTS. ASTS was down as much as 15% at some point today. It's climbing back from those lows, but probably furthering in George's theory of saying that they were priced for perfection and to be the winner of the space, and now maybe people aren't as confident in that. So ASTS is down 5% right now. They reclaimed that $40 mark in their shares, but we'll go over all of the moving parts of this story. EchoStar, SpaceX, ASTS, Rocket Lab. Then we have to get into the first trillionaire discussion because Tesla released the details for a pay package of Elon Musk that goes through 2035. And I believe this is what actually sent Tesla stock up the most on Friday because people were happy that he'll be involved with the company as long as this pay package is accepted for the foreseeable future. And it's very incentive based. So the goals that are within it are pretty, if they come true, it'd be pretty good for Tesla shareholders. So I'll give you all of those details when we get into that story. Now, the next story is super, super interesting. I have never heard of this before, but there's something called WorldCoin. Let me know if you're familiar with this at all. WorldCoin Crypto. It's backed by Sam Altman. Um, so it's a bit creepy, the fact that Sam Altman's involved with this company when I let you know more about the involvement of it with AI. But there is a stock making a sensational move today. The ticker is OCTO, Octo. The company's name is 8Co. They are up 2,811% just today, as of right now, recording this video. Absolutely insane move. And even after that insane move, the market cap is still very small, $123 million right now. So a lot's going on. Some things were announced with Dan Ives joining the board. There's connections with Tom Lee, the biggest bull on Wall Street, and obviously there's connections with Sam Altman. So we'll go through it all, but it's a pretty insane move to see a stock up over 2,000% in a single day. Ticker OCTO. Next, we'll get into the Apple event, which is set to take place tomorrow. Will Apple release any surprising, exciting, innovative news and products tomorrow? If you guys are familiar with, you've watched a lot of streams, you probably know George's opinion about the lack of excitement that he's seeing from Apple. So maybe they can start to flip the script, because Apple stock has actually, although they were lagging for some time, they've caught some of their own footing here, it seems like. They're still red year to date though, but in the last 3 months up 17%. So trying to mount a comeback. And last but not least, I see a comment. Johnny in the USA. Good morning, all. Good morning, Johnny. Thanks for being in here today. We'll go through some of the earnings that are set to take place this week. We have GameStop, Adobe, and Oracle all announcing. There's several others that are going this week. So if anybody wants to hear us talk about them as well, feel free to leave a comment about it. But these were the three that really caught my eye. So we'll go through all of them. As always, not just the earnings comments. If you have any questions about, stock specific, macro, micro, business, AI, whatever you got for us, let us know in the comments. If you're watching on X or YouTube, follow us, subscribe to us, like the stream. As I've been doing recently, I realized I should have been doing this the whole time probably. I've been liking the streams on the Prospero account to help you guys. I think we're going to get a lot of viewers today, so let's hit that 20 mark for sure. We definitely can do it. I believe in us. But we're just going to wait for George to get in here now, and then we'll start with some of the topics. Let me take a look around the markets and see just exactly how stuff is moving today. We'll look at the Mag 7 and then Bitcoin. So we have Apple slightly in the red, Amazon green, Google green. Again, Google has been very strong ever since that announcement came out about their relationship with Apple. Meta green, Microsoft green. I feel like Microsoft has been one of the weakest Mag 7 stocks of late. Tesla's red today, giving back some of those gains they got on Friday. Last but not least, Nvidia. Nvidia is in the green today. Nvidia has also been a little bit weak since their earnings report just a few weeks ago. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up today. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream. Bitcoin's up almost 1.5% today, crossing the 112,000 mark again. And as we begin, the markets are all in the green. It's looking like quite the bullish day so far, George. Our signals are reflecting that. A big switch up in the SPY and the QQQ net option sentiment. So last week, we saw for the first time, it feels like in a long time, the SPY cross above the QQQ and net options strength. And today it's remaining that way, but they're both well higher than where they've been at, it seems like recently. So the SPY is at 45 right now, QQQ at 38. I want to go through some of the data we got at the end of last week. It was a bit weak. So why are we seeing renewed strength, it seems like, in the markets? And just how are you feeling coming out of the weekend and what you're seeing in the market so far opening up here today? We're seeing a lot of stocks in the green.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna look at QQQ and SPY and net auction sentiment right now. I mean, you could probably tell me, but I'll take a look. 38. Yeah, I mean, I probably am like looking at this and thinking I should swing a little more bullish. Um, but because I went in even, but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I'm thinking similar to like, kind of what you alluded to, where it's just like, I think we know the answer, right? Which is that this is becoming a more and more, I'd say, retail-driven market. And in that retail-driven market, I think it leans a lot more bullish than it in, markets as I've typically seen them in the past. And they're going to be less economic driven. And, what we're seeing is a more, retail algorithmic momentum driven market, right? So I don't think there's necessarily the best rationale for this other than, you know, I think what we're seeing is, kind of you might call it new macroeconomics, where I think like a strong desire of the government to, prop up the markets. And like we say all the time, this is not unique to this administration. Um, or either party. There's a desire to prop up the markets. But I think it's kind of like, many things in this administration taken to a new level. And so I think that's kind of, for lack of a better word, trumping people's concerns about traditional economic metrics.
Do you think the fervor and the percentage of the market moves that we're seeing from retail, like you've been saying, do you think that's going to work in the reverse direction? So, like when we finally do get a bearish event, do you think as bullish as retail seems to be right now, do you think that can flip and it could be like so consensus bearish that we'll see an even overreaction in the opposite direction? Maybe we saw that with the tariffs because it moved pretty down, like fairly downward very quickly. But if there's something that's more lasting, can we see that happen in the opposite direction? Or do you think retail is always going to be like net bullish at the end of the day?
I mean, no, I mean, they're not always net bullish. Unfortunately, every large market decline looks exactly the same. Um, it's institutions getting out first. It's retail that always, retail, will always because it's easier, right? We go through this because it's easier to go long than short stocks, and because retail tends to look at the big picture, which is the market goes up a lot more than it goes down. It's almost always the same story with big market declines, and that story is um, institutions get out, retail starts, initially is just like the market's going to bounce back. It doesn't bounce back. They take heavier losses. And then in droves, retail starts getting out. That accelerates the whole thing. That's how it goes every time. So, I mean, unfortunately, as much as I like to see, a more powerful, retail community, retail driving the market more, I think the flip side to that is their retail is being set up for larger losses when it does crack, because they do hold on and they do, unlike hedge funds, which for those that don't know the obvious naming convention, they're called hedge funds because they're always hedged in some way. So even in good times, hedge funds are shorting something, hedging their position with something. There's always they're almost never just exposed. The long only ones, obviously are a different story, but the ones that aren't long only are almost never exposed um, fully to even the start of a decline. Like and retail is obviously exposed, often exposed, fully to the start of the decline, and it also takes them longer to tell themselves like, okay, maybe it's not going to snap back. So yeah, like I do think unfortunately we're heading in that direction eventually. Who knows when?
And I see your question, Alumo Rock Capital. I just want to ask one more follow up. So the weak jobs report, and I believe unemployment hitting 4.3%, which was the highest in like multiple years. The market kind of shrugged that off and even seems more bullish because of it. Now, maybe that's because of the rate cuts that are about to begin, but you'd have to expect at some point. with the data seemingly getting weaker, the market's not going to like that forever, right? Or how long can this last where bad data is good for the market?
I think it's good for the market, right? Like it didn't respond that positively on Friday, right? It went up and then it declined. I just think it's not necessarily as bad for the market as you might expect, but like I said, this always ends the same way when people are, speculating, when people are kind of ignoring bad news or not taking it as seriously as they maybe should. I've seen this cycle many, many times, and it always ends in some kind of crash eventually. Like we're in, some things more than others are very bubbly. But like I said, the challenge of this is like I also don't think it's smart to be shorting too aggressively now. That's why we're staying pretty even long short, because we are seeing more signs of weakness. But uh, we're not necessarily seeing something that would tell me definitively that the market is, ready to like lose its, bullish exuberance entirely. So, I think it's going to hold on to that. Um, but, and that's what makes it challenging, but why we're staying pretty even long short. And we're not chasing big wins on, by getting, a lot of longs or a lot of shorts. Like, last week when we did it, when net option sentiment shot up to 30, and then, we kind of took on a lot more risk, and that hit our portfolio. We've been pretty hesitant to, go long again. And given like how often the dip is bought, I don't think it's very smart to go short, heavy short or heavy long. So yeah, I think that's going to be the paradigm for a bit.
So we can get to Alumu's question now about AVAV is the ticker, is also reporting this week. Would like to see what George thinks. Short-term net option is 81 and technical is 38.
That's not that hot. Like, if you look at its chart on ABNV, 81 ABAV, it's not necessarily that high for it. Upside is kind of in a downward trend, and downside is in a bit of an upward trend. And here's the problem, right? If I look at a chart like that, I would normally say, if you like it, that's great. I wouldn't let anything in that really change your opinion of it. But I also think in this kind of like softening market, I think, you're also talking about a pretty big, volatility situation where, I think especially right now, because it is so, the market as a whole is so volatile, I think you could easily see, a big reaction, an outsized reaction one way or the other with AVAV. But we're gonna do our thing where we ask Perplexity. So we'll come back to that. We're gonna give Perplexity a second to answer, but we'll come back to it.
So Mario is also in our comments talking about QuantumScape QS finally unveiled their solid state battery with Volkswagen, I believe, VW, up 25% today.
Which one's QS? Do we have that in?
I believe that's QuantumScape.
Oh yeah, we have that. Yeah, I mean, looks good, not great. Nice net option sentiment. Um, but yeah, I think like we're talking about with a lot of things, it's quantum is risky, and it's very hard to look at risk right now. Um, let me-
Any perplexity findings on AVAV?
um,
I believe we talked about this company the last earnings report they had actually because they reacted well on the back of it.
yeah,
And
we added it recently. But yeah, it's doing its big. It's the machine's going burr. Well, we can come back to it in a few minutes.
so it's
Maybe
interesting.
after our next question, we'll go back to it. Yeah.
All right. Uh, well, I wanted to bring up Appleman and Robinhood again today because we officially got the news that they are both going to be added into S&P 500 and both are reacting positively today. Um, does it change your opinions about either of the companies? I mean, I think you were pretty bullish on both of them, and our signals have liked both. So, um, does it change anything? Are you feeling even better about them now that they're added, or kind of just, they're staying on track of the evolution that you thought these stocks would go on?
Yeah, I mean, I almost added Apple Oven because it looks so good in that option sentiment. And then yeah, we're trying to make less moves in the portfolio to, to make it easier to follow. But we have gotten some interesting feedback on our poll that maybe we're oversampling on a few opinions, because I think most people were very supportive of us making as many moves as we want. But yeah, I really like both those stocks. Um, it's really just a question of uh, for Robinhood net option sentiment, I want to see what it closed with. It was looking a little soft on Friday. I did look at it because I was thinking I would definitely add it. Um, yeah, let's see. Oh, now it looks great. Yeah, was not looking very good um, in net option sentiment. Obviously today it is, but App was on a really nice trend. App was the one that I was, definitely really considering. It closed at 97. But yeah, it just I didn't quite get there, and I didn't want to, do an exit on Friday afternoon type thing. But I, we love the long-term businesses of both of those. And I think, App especially, um, I mean, both of them have huge revenue growth potential. I just think, Robinhood is a little more, subject to headline risk, but they both are in really good spaces and are starting to really improve their revenue and their profits. Robinhood's moving into, Robinhood, while I'd say the riskier headline stock, like I think it's got more kind of irons in the fire in terms of revenue possibilities. Um, so yeah, it's interesting.
Mario is asking about your perplexity search. Are you which level are you using, and are you using any particular prompt for it?
Um, yeah, I use deep research, and I do pay. Well, I actually get it for free. One of my friends got me the upgrade for free, so but it's pro. And then I say what this is the prompt I put in, and it gives me a lot of stuff, even beyond what. And you got to click deep research. Deep research is the good one. Okay, let's see. All right, let's share my screen so everyone. There's a lot of good information here. No whisper number. Okay. Ah, see, this one, we typically see a higher, this kind of like echoes what I was saying, where it could really go either way. Really positive, but they did beat 7 of the last 10 quarters. That's pretty good. Ooh, that's interesting. Beat 7 to the last 10 quarters, yet experiences negative stock reactions 55% of the time. I would say this leans against the event right there, because like you could be dealing with a beat that they go negative. So that seems like too much risk. Zax has a sell on it. It's pretty high PE. Yeah, I think this is leaning towards a no.
That's super interesting. Um, Good morning, Eddie, on our Twitter live stream saying checking in for market open. Topher saying no gold question mark. I saw gold just keeps on ripping higher.
Yeah, um I think uh I think we've got some gold exposure. I think PPA is a gold mine. Um I don't know how it's doing today. I hope it's doing well. It would be annoying if Ooh, CoreWeave is doing well again. I wonder where net options is not. It's not doing well. Great. Gold's doing well, but it's not doing well. Lovely.
Gold is now up 37% year to date. That's a
Damn.
pretty major move for like the world's oldest currency, no?
I mean, people, people rely. It's like, it's a very reliable like um hedge against, kind of everything. And then it's also so much about perception, right? Because like the perception is like it's disaster insurance, and then people pay for that disaster insurance, which makes it even more important.
Well, that's the thing that makes me wonder if it's disaster insurance and it keeps on going up and up and up, is a disaster looming? And it kind of ties back into like what you were saying in the beginning, where it's like we're kind of in this period now where, the market's kind of going up on no fundamentals, there's momentum, kind of seems like there might be a pullback coming around the corner. Are all of these like different things coming together? And it's like, well, how long is the timeline until something happens?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hear it in like investing circles. I like kind of hear it like kind of jokingly called increasingly the everything bubble. But that's a joke. But there's truth to every joke, and I think that like some people, it's hard to look around and say what's overpriced and what isn't, because like you know a lot of it is overpriced when you think that like part of what you might call as like fair value includes um you know the government continuing to help the markets, right? That's difficult, especially when you've started to see our credit ratings start to decline. um and then you also you look at like UBS, the 93% recession prediction. Obviously there's one as low as 15. We put that in our letter last week. But when you look at numbers like that, you like the UBS one, obviously you have to sample all the numbers and give these different theories. It's always good to give them all space and evaluate them. But a lot of what UBS was talking about was credit strain and high level debt markets, and at a certain point, right? At a certain point, you kind of look and you say, "Damn, the Trump administration is cutting a lot of costs, and we're still running a larger and larger deficit." Part of that is the interest payments. Part of it is that we are taking on more debt to finance tax cuts, and it's just like um, that's the other side of like, oh, the government's gonna prop up the market, right? It gets to a certain point where if the valuations get high enough and like the macroeconomic concerns mount enough, um, that there's kind of nothing the government can do, especially if we get stagflation, right? Especially if like we're talking about, prices start to increase, um, um, from tariffs more. The impact of them is more fully felt. We've talked about this. Like a lot of the companies are currently absorbing, almost 70%, when, Goldman thinks that 70% is eventually going to go to the consumers, right? You have that, and you have that, eventually increasing, prices. And then if we lower rates and we get inflation, it's really, really, that could be a very, very difficult situation, and inflation can get out of control, and something that we ultimately like can't prevent very well, or can't remedy very well, I should say.
And I guess that leads into why gold going up makes sense then. And Topher also was saying if CPI stays hot, more upside for gold. I guess that's kind of the other side of it, where if it's just like a higher inflation and the government keeps on printing money, I guess why would gold not keep going up in that situation?
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I think what was unsaid and what you said, where it's just like the more like, and our currency has been getting devalued too, as part of this, as part of us like losing trade power, part of this tariff thing. So I think that's another part of the concern, is like, yeah, so when all that adds up, it's just that you do have to print more and more currency to remedy the situation, more and more debt. And yeah, the more you have to do it, the more your currency devalues, the harder it is for that to have an impact. And the harder it is to maintain a good credit rating.
hmm So I want to move on now to a company named EchoStar. They are up 16% now. In the pre-market, they were up as much as 60%. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe a little bit of a short squeeze event or something. But they sold $17 billion. Well, they got $17 billion from SpaceX for their Spectrum licenses. And this comes after just earlier in August, they sold $23 billion worth of product for AT&T. And this resolves an FCC probe that they were under as well. So I had no idea EchoStar was like so dominant in this industry. But when this story came out today, it was another one of those events that sent ASTS down. They were down as much as 15%. So I think furthering your thought process last week when we were talking about the Amazon story, where you were saying ASTS is kind of priced to be the winner and the leader in the space. Maybe this again challenges that, and less so for EchoStar now that they sold it away, but maybe for SpaceX even making a bigger push into that. Um, so, what are your thoughts about ASTS now after again we're seeing it react negatively, even I would say bigger this time with this new story? Maybe SpaceX is, the market was worried about Amazon, but maybe SpaceX is the real juggernaut that ASTS has a problem with, and just the whole space sector shifting that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I had to. We got to add Sats to Prospero. Like I wasn't. I was. It's a 22. I mean, I guess no. I was like, I guess it's got a lot bigger, but it's only up 17% now. Um, but yeah, that's a bigger market cap than ASTS, I think.
It
So
is,
I
yeah.
got to research.
ASTS is like 15 billion, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to research that more. That's super interesting. Like especially how some of these like online stocks. This is I think where retail gets you know it's very interesting like what stocks end up rising to the surface. And I think ASTS does a good job of like having these partnerships. And they don't have much revenue. I'd be very interested to see what SATS is revenue is. Their tickers are so similar. SATS, ASTS. I wonder if ASTS is like ripping that off. But it is kind of interesting how one company doing something very similar. And I just want to check on SATS's revenue because I'm definitely curious about this. Um, let's see.
I got it for you. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
1.89 billion 2020, 19.82 billion 2021, 18.63 billion 22, 17.02 23, 15.83 24. So it's kind of like gone down year after year since 2021, which is
Yeah, but
interesting.
still that dwarfs like ASTS, I think is like a couple hundred million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's an interesting company. Maybe they just like, maybe people didn't like their management or think they had a good plan and that's why revenue was going down and they price ASTS in a much more exciting way. But it goes to show you how interesting these momentum plays can be.
One thing I did see about them that was a risk factor before this, which I'm looking up right now, was investors were worried about EchoStar's debt level. They had a lot of debt. So let's see. As of March 2025, EchoStar Corporation debt total was 29.52 billion. So, but everybody's saying with these recent moves of selling these satellite products, and there was actually a part of the deal with SpaceX where SpaceX is going to pay an additional like $2 billion of their debt. So that was rejoiced by investors because yeah, almost $30 billion of debt, more than the market cap. That's not usual, right? Having more debt than your market cap.
Yeah, that's pretty unusual. And I guess that makes a lot more sense now. Why they would be
What does that tell you? Did they just like try to grow as fast as humanly possible and just racked up debt to try and do it as quickly as they could?
yeah, I mean, especially when you're building, technology, IP, everything like that, like you can get a lot of loans where people are forecasting revenue. But yeah, that sounds like a lot of, you can run the numbers on that and you say like, okay, let's just call it 30 billion, right? At a 10% rate, like they're paying 3 billion just in interest a year, That's really that's not a I'm surprised they haven't just sold, right? Typically when that happens and you have good technology, you'll just sell your company.
Do you think, because now that I'm thinking about this with like the level, these businesses seem like super cash intensive to like start, especially like when you're making that tech because it's like you're going to fail a lot in the beginning. Do you think like Elon Musk with SpaceX and Bezos with Blue Origin have a huge advantage just because they're so wealthy to begin with? Um, and do you see those companies kind of having a competitive advantage in that way?
I mean, deep pockets always give you a competitive advantage, right? I think I think that's why a lot of people think that maybe like Verizon will buy ASTS because like when it's such a capital intensive business, you're going to be valued a lot better if you can just finance whatever you need. And like ASTS has they have plenty of money to do what they want. But that being said, maybe if they were, owned by Amazon, they would be building, 10 times faster than they are. I don't know the logistics of launching these crafts and testing them and the partnerships well enough to say that definitively. It's just kind of a fact of capital and building. Um, that if you have a lot more, you can be more aggressive in how fast you build, um, which is one of the reasons Amazon does so well. And they put so many places out of business because a lot of the times they're just willing to put more into things like, the supply chain than the places around them to make them, cheaper, more efficient. Um, and that could be the same. you know I don't know exactly how many of these satellites have to get launched to say like get like full coverage and have good coverage and be able to like expand in busy areas or anything like that. But I do know a company with more capital can probably get to that critical mass quicker than one like ASTS. That I mean, like I said, they have plenty of cash, but it's a very different situation of how you spend and allocate resources if you have like what amounts to Amazon, which is an unlimited pile of cash to get into, unlimited by how we might think about things to get into these new areas, especially if they think they'll be ultimately profitable, versus a finite amount of cash that you have in the bank. You could borrow, you could issue shares, but we've seen share issuance dilution, especially have it react negatively in the markets. So yeah, there's always an inherent advantage to that. But I will say, I do think ASTS is going to get acquired sooner or later for that reason. Who acquires them? I don't know. It might be um, Kuiper. There might be just like a consolidation like that. Um, but yeah, like launching satellites to give coverage is a pretty capital intensive business.
So you said a little bit about deep pockets, and someone's pockets are about to get a whole lot deeper, and that person is Elon Musk because a $1 trillion pay package by the Tesla board has been proposed, and there's a lot of incentive-based aspects of this package. So I'll go through a couple of them. So an 8.5 trillion market cap by 2035. Other operational milestones include delivering 20 million vehicles, deploying 1 million robotaxis, securing 10 million full self-driving subscriptions, and launching 1 million AI-powered Optimus robots. I saw Tesla is now added yesterday in our investing letter. So how do you feel about the size of this package? It's just massive. It would make Elon Musk the first trillionaire, I think, at least that we know of. And the fact that it's so incentive based with the shareholders, it seems like that would be like a very good thing for the company. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, there was a positive reaction on the stock when the news dropped.
Uh-oh. Can anybody hear George or I that's watching? I lost George. Wait for a chat. Let me know if you see George or I. He is frozen? All right. Sorry, I was muted. We'll just wait here. I'm sure George will. Oh, he's back. Hello.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but when can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you.
I don't know what's going on with that. I start talking about Elon Musk's pay package, and all of a sudden my connection cuts out.
We
Um,
are streaming on X.
yeah. It's just like you could do it at 500 billion and have the same like incentives, and it would still be very good for the stock price. I know there's like some aspect of competition with the other billionaires, and Jeff Bezos had his wedding and everything like that, but it's at some point it's got to be enough for these people. Like I don't know. I just like I hear $1 trillion pay package and I'm just like okay, maybe you could argue that he could get it and that it's market value and all that stuff, and that's fair, right? That's a fair argument. Um but at a certain point, it's just like I wish you'd be a little more generous with that at least, right? I wish I saw, and I'm not singling him out. There's a lot of billionaires who I don't think are, necessarily having enough, charitable pursuits. Um, and I wish that was the other side of it. Like just hoarding all this money because you can get it. Like these people couldn't spend this money in 1,000 lifetimes. It's just like I don't understand it.
Jill said it right. Topher said gonna drive Elizabeth Warren crazy. The one thing I will say, just to play devil's advocate, he will only get that trillion if Tesla's market cap hits 8.5 trillion. So he's generating so much wealth for others while doing it. Um, does that
But even
counterbalance what
then,
you're saying?
e- you know, even then, by the time you have a public company, I don't think you should expect to own like an eighth. And I mean, he has previous stock too, so you're probably talking about more. Maybe it's a seventh, maybe it's a sixth of what everybody else owns. I don't agree. Like, I don't agree that anyone needs to have that. And I think some people should just find some other things to fulfill them. And on the Elizabeth Warren thing, I don't necessarily agree um that billionaires shouldn't exist. I do think people should find more ways if they have that much money to help other people. And you might say, well, they do, but I would say, like, I think there's too many people that are suffering, even in our country, too many people that are not fed well, for that to exist. And I think it would be a lot better. Like, I'd feel a lot better about people making trillions of dollars if we could also, take care of people that, don't have much. Uh, but yeah, I just like I'm not saying anyone like people have the right to get from their shareholders, from anyone, what they can get, right? I don't think it makes him a bad person necessarily. I just don't think it makes him a good person.
Well said. I'm spinning now to a story that I think today's talking about this story, and Mario said well said as well, is just the start of where this story is going to go. And it's very interesting. Okay, so let me break it down for you. So there is a crypto called WorldCoin. Now, this crypto is the native token um, of a company called Identity, which is a startup backed by Sam Altman. Okay. So there's a company now called 8Co. Its ticker is OCTO. They announced today that they're going to take an MSTR Bitcoin strategy where they're going to have WorldCoin as their balance sheet asset, and that stock is up 2,500% today, rallying just insanely. And its market cap is tiny. Like, I believe it began the day at a 4 million market cap, and now it's up to 115 million. But there's more tie in here. So, like, 8Co just announced that Dan Ives is going to join the board. And Tom Lee's BM&R just said they're going to invest in this WorldCoin coin. And what the WorldCoin aims to do is authenticate humans on its network, giving the growing number of threats from AI, such as deepfakes. So it seemed like there's a very tangled web here. We have Sam Altman, OpenAI, connected to OpenAI, also backing this crypto. We have Dan Ives joining the board. We have Octo, the stock 8Co, up 2,500%. We have Tom Lee involved. What do you make of all of this going on here and seeing this stock up so insanely today, but still having a pretty, actually, like very small market cap of just over 100 million?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny on its core, right? That you have someone being like, you know, all these deep fakes are going to mean we need to, or we're going to need we need to figure everything out, when, like, a lot of the deep fakes are coming from, your core technology. It's kind of like, it's yeah it's kind of like releasing a disease and selling everybody the antidote, or being like, we're really going to need this. Not quite that extreme, but um we might be seeing in the not too distant future that AI is a disease that we've released upon ourselves. But I mean, other than that, other than me thinking it's pretty funny, that um that it has that, I think it's a really necessary thing, and I think there's value needed.
I don't understand, like, I don't know if our chat agrees with me, but does anybody feel a little weird the fact that Sam Altman, he has the OpenAI side of things where he has all the data. Then he tries to do the nuclear startup with Oklo, and I believe he's separated from that now. But he had that going on one time. So he had energy, he had data. Now he has finance with WorldCoin. Um, it seems like Sam Altman's working on a lot of things that have can control or like have a lot of, I don't know. Do you feel that way at all, George? The fact that he's got his
I
fingers
mean,
in.
that's
Yeah.
pretty much like what I was talking about, right? It's like you're creating the thing, like you're creating the problem, the market need, and and then you're um and then you're selling it. I mean, he did, like, I think it's less bad with this. Um, I think it's less bad with the nuclear power, because, like, everybody would need nuclear power. It's not necessarily his AI or AI. Like, we were gonna need to go in that direction anyway. Like we are, Moore's law would say that, like, long before OpenAI even existed. But I do think it's pretty funny and a little crazy. That that he's being like, with these deep fakes we're going to need authentication, um when he's basically creating the need for that, the tech that are driving a lot of the deep fakes.
And Alumo said you can basically say the same thing about Elon, right? I guess a lot of the big, powerful CEOs, entrepreneurs have their fingers in a lot of pies. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's any news updates with this company, ticker OCTO, after being up so much in a single day, if any of those gains can stick or not. Moving on, I want to bring up Apple having their annual event tomorrow. Are you excited? Are you expecting any big product revelations? You know, Apple stock has kind of gotten a bit of a stronger momentum in it recently. So, um, any excitement or interest for you there, or not so much?
I don't know. I just, Apple's kind of got the same problem, where it's just like it just doesn't. I don't know what they're doing to innovate. And, like, not only I don't know what they're doing to innovate, like, what what happened to that VR headset? What happened to that that car? Like, it's just like, not only are they not innovating, we could see they're burning money, and Apple's got plenty of money to burn, right? But I just can't, like, it's fine if you love Apple and you love their products and you just want to own a piece of their company. That's a perfectly good reason to own a stock. But I just think the upside is really limited until we can see that they have any ability to innovate.
What product, would you need to see them launch a completely new product or just make an exciting update to one of their existing products for you to be, because since we've been talking about Apple, it's kind of been the same tune and it makes sense, but like what would it be, a product update from an existing product or a brand new one that you would need to see?
I mean, you could innovate on an existing product, right? They could take an iPhone, create a new, like, a new feature or something like that, that everybody was like, I gotta own an iPhone again, right? Um, but we just haven't, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen anything resembling that. And I think that makes it tough. I think that makes it tough to get excited about them.
Topher said they should buy, I think you say that Xiaomi, right? The China brand. I don't think that would go over well with Mr. Trump. What do you think, George? If they bought them, how would their stock react?
I don't know what that is.
I think it's like the biggest China phone maker.
Oh, yeah, that's not. That would be hilarious. Trump would not like that.
Okay, so I have one more story to bring up on the stream today. It's just going over some of the stocks that are reporting earnings this week. But I just want to thank everybody that's been in the stream so far. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the topics. If you have any questions, any stocks that we haven't discussed so far today, let us know in the chat. Good to see we're getting more Twitter comments here. So thank you guys for joining in the discussion. So earnings continues. We got a few interesting ones to go over. Oh, it's a new EV. It's not a phone. Xiaomi, said Topher. They also make cars. So maybe it would be more interesting for Apple then. Okay, but so the earnings I want to bring up are GameStop, Adobe, and Oracle, all reporting this week. GameStop has gotten such little attention recently, I feel like, with Open Door stealing kind of the meme thunder. Are you looking into their earnings at all? Interesting now that they have the Bitcoin aspect of it, or no? No love for GameStop at the moment.
I mean, the thing about Bitcoin, I mean, the thing about GameStop, GameStop. I mean, the thing about GameStop is that I think you're right. I think they've lost their luster a little bit. But in terms of just like having a short squeeze, kind of like, whatever. But B, I actually think they're always kind of an interesting earnings play because it's kind of similar to Tesla, where it's just like any good news, they're like rabid shareholders are gonna like pounce on it, or like even bad news, they might find a way to stem that. So like, I actually think as an earnings play, GameStop is really good, just because on bad news your downside is limited, and on good news your upside is maximized. That doesn't mean I want to play it just because that's not our process. And I mean, I don't even know. I haven't looked in a while. Let's take a look at what GME is doing. Yeah, all the way down to 28 upside. Things have changed, but 78 in option sentiment pretty much shows you what we're saying. Like, people are just, oh wow, they have a 9 growth. It's pretty embarrassing for a company with a 34 profitability. But yeah, I would not be surprised to see it go up.
Just one thing, looking at the GameStop chart, I'm realizing this January is going to be like the 5-year mark for when the original squeeze happened. And I wonder if around that time there's going to be any renewed excitement and people talking about it just because of the date lining up there. But to go to Adobe, currently down 21% year to date, 37% over the past year, 25% over the past 5 years. The stock that just has not worked. Do you think there can be any value here in this company before they announce, and maybe they could surprise?
No, I mean, I think the whole like PDF. Um, I mean, I think AI makes it easier to take apart and put together back PDFs. Like before, like you had to have some real like skills, or like a good PDF editor with that, like them, like that was one of the only ways to do it. But now a lot of people can edit PDFs, and a lot of AI has made it. So I think PDFs are a little less secure, and B, as a result of that, I think things like DocuSign um, are like making their business less interesting, and they have other like software products and everything like that, but ultimately I think you know they kind of are losing their like, let's call it technological necessity. So when I see things like that, I really have to love the setup, and the setup doesn't look too good either.
I know just from like the editing side of things, they used to be like the king of that space, but now with CapCut and or Meta launched like this Edits app, they're way cheaper than Adobe stuff, and people are kind of switching. So they've kind of lost their edge there as well. Last one to bring up today, Oracle. Maybe it's going to look the best of the three that we're bringing up today because they're one of those legacy companies that's kind of getting their groove back with AI, and I know they've looked good in the signals from time to time recently. So, what do you think of Oracle before earnings?
Yeah, they look good in the screener I ran this weekend. 85 upside, 85 net option sentiment. Wow, that net option sentiment looks like a good trend too. They're reporting this week.
Yes, I believe Thursday.
I don't know if I want to play their earnings, but maybe I will. Uh, we'll uh, we'll run it through Perplexity. Yeah, this is something I could see myself buying today. I mean, yeah, if I as I'm flipping the portfolio a little more bullish.
Oh my gosh! Wow, Oracle is a $680 billion market cap. I didn't know they were that big of a company. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they've been doing some good things. Um, mm,
Broadcom also approaching, not really approaching, but they're now 1.65 trillion, getting close to the 2 trillion mark after reacting good for their earnings.
I'm gonna do the switch. I'm not doing the
Perplexity.
um model portfolio today, but I do have to send out a screener because I realized we have to work around the tech flow. By the way, anyone that had trouble over the weekend or anything, I'm not taking the responsibility for this. Um, Polygon's data feed went down. So our tech flow went down and that took a bunch of other things down. We got it up, but if you go in the screener right now and only see one thing, that's because tech flow is not working. They screwed us.
George, I have a question
um,
before you switch.
mhm.
These perplexity searches that take like minutes now to load, are we in like the phase of the tech where like 10 years from now we're going to look back and be like, "Oh my god, people had to wait minutes for this and it's going to be like a second like a Google search," or is it too much like data to go through for that to happen one day?
um, no, we're definitely but I think there might always be a load time, right? Because it might be like looking at more data, right? You never know what the next frontier is. Or maybe at a certain point it's just like, a lot of this is like, you train a model and then it finds things. Um, but yeah, like it could be something ultimately um that uh a lot of this is pre-trained, a lot of the explorations, like if they've already walked the path, but it'll be interesting to see. You never know what the next frontier is. It might get more ambitious. But I do think it's kind of funny, as powerful it is to be like, hold on, I'm thinking for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, Dollar Ellison is 80. All right, so we'll do the switch and we'll catch you on the other
Hmm.
side. All right, everybody stick with me. George will be right back and we'll do some updates.
Actually, maybe I'll just do it right. I'll do it right here. It's just a screener. It's not the most intensive process, and then I don't need to switch.
Sounds good. JC on YouTube said, I think quantum computing will speed up all data crunching activities. That's a good point.
Um, mm, Yeah, see, this is the max risk. Option sentiment plus dark pool plus growth. Yeah, look at these. This is quite the choices. All right. How's BMNR doing today? All right, why not? Let's see, is a new screener in there? All right, we'll look at perplexity and come back. What's going on with this? Why is it struggling so much with Oracle?
I have a question. I'm a little confused. Is it possible to trade these options from Europe? Thanks.
What options? We don't recommend trading options. We have option sentiment, but no, we don't recommend options. I'm sure it's possible. I think IBKR allows you to trade from Europe. But yeah, we don't recommend trading options. It might be confusing, like the fact that we have an option sentiment, which is actually just to give you an idea of what's going on in the options markets, without you having to trade options. All right. We can talk about Oracle on Wednesday. I don't know what's going on with this.
Looks like you cleared it up for them.
Okay, new screener's in. All right, we're going to send this out and we're going to be done. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everybody that tuned in today. Thank you, George. We'll be back Wednesday at 3 p.m. this week with more great stock market stories. See you all then. Bye, everyone.